Greetings and a hearty welcome, everyone. I hope you're all faring well. I'm Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host, coming to you, shining love light into your hearts and homes to uplift, inspire, and empower you to create a life you love. We are truly grateful for our listeners tuning in today. In our show, Paradigm Shift, the next evolutionary step to human consciousness will inspire us to evolve to our natural state of being. According to Guru, without raising consciousness, whatever we do in the world will only lead to more and more suffering. And Albert Einstein, no problem can be solved from the consciousness that created it. So, how can we elevate our consciousness for the betterment of ourselves and humanity? How can we have a sustainable relationship with Earth? How can we have an authentic connection with others? Our guest today, Adrian Emery, will show us how. Joining us from Australia, Adrian is the author of Personal Sovereignty and Tao Tuning, the Art of Flow. An entrepreneur, philosopher, business owner, environmentalist, and a keen gardener, Adrian has devoted his life to creating a new philosophy called LifeWorks, based on the understanding of laws, principles, and codes that make life work easy, effortlessly, and successfully. Life is a gift, and we are here to enjoy life and be successful. It's our birthright. Adrian has developed a coaching modality called Tao Tuning, designed to assist others to find their purpose and attune to the flow of their inner destiny and fate, establishing their life on the firm foundation of cosmic principles. Adrian has now retired to Sennikatqan, a spectacular garden built over the last 50 years to demonstrate how we can regenerate the earth to right and prepare others for the coming of planetary transition to a new world. He has also created rusticspirit, a spiritual retreat for guests to come and experience stillness. So now I am honored to welcome Adrian Emery joining us today from the beautiful Blue Mountains of Australia on our show today, Paradigm Shift, the next evolutionary step to human consciousness. Adrian, welcome to Love Light.
Thank you very much, Jean. I'm delighted to be on your show and talk to your listeners. And I'm sure that we're going to have a very enjoyable hour together. And hopefully we can spread some love light to all of your listeners.
Indeed. Well, Adrian, can you just briefly share a little bit about your journey? What really inspired you on your path?
Very briefly, when I was a very young child, I used to look around me. I've always been very curious about how things work. And I wanted to know how life worked, but I couldn't really find any solution that satisfied me. Now, when we talk about how does life work, we're really talking about a philosophy, a religion, a cosmology, a set of beliefs. I was brought up a Catholic, and I was quite a devout Catholic. I was a choir boy, and I followed it quite studiously, but there was always something missing for me. I thought there was something more. I wanted a philosophy of life that worked in the here and now, that made life more practical, pragmatic. I didn't want a philosophy that was all about the hereafter or another lifetime. I wanted it to make my personal life work better.
Mm.
And so that led me to the development of my LifeWorks philosophy. And that's why I call it LifeWorks, because personally, I believe that life does work. If we learn how to flow with life, if we learn how to go with it, it's like anything.
Yes.
I can only drive a car if I learn how to drive that car. Anything that we want to do, when we first start to learn it, we're very clumsy, we're awkward, and it's very, very difficult. But as we become more proficient and masters, we translate most of that doingness to our autonomic nervous system. For example, if you're driving along and the brake lights in the car in front of you come on and get redder, you automatically put your foot on the brake. You don't need to think about it. It's not conscious. You can be talking, you can be listening to music, but it is an inbuilt reaction and response. So it's the same if you look at any elite athlete or dancer or artist or anyone, musician, it becomes effortless, and our autonomic nervous system takes over. So I wanted a philosophy that made life simpler and work better, and easier, more fun, more joy. And as you just said, Gene, I've spent my whole life devoted to this. And it's probably only recently that I feel that I've put it all together where it really does start to make sense for me. And I believe that we can flow with life. It has changed my life. I think your life can and needs to be a blessing, a joy, and not a hardship.
That's so profound because I know there are many listeners out there trying to determine what does it take to make life work. And here we are talking about the paradigm shift. Can you really highlight what is this about, this new cycle of evolution and universal energy to bring it home in terms of our episode title?
Look, I think that we're not really looking, and at the moment I'm going to be talking a little bit about planetary issues, but we
Okay.
also need to understand that the primary planetary issues are all of our own personal issues. They're two sides of the one coin. But and wherever we look today, whether we look at economics or whether we look at geopolitics, it's amazing. I was thinking about this yesterday. If you turn on the nightly news, it is pretty much all about killing.
Yeah.
Whether it is a war in Ukraine or in Gaza, whether it is, just the murder of someone on the street, whether it is terrorism, whether it is a robbery, whether it is domestic violence, it seems that wherever we look, there's a lot of killing. And it really made me start to wonder about, is this really the way human beings are? Is this really a fundamental part of our nature? Or has something gone wrong? Has someone led us down this path? Is the killing a symptom of a deeper problem? And I think that's the conclusion that I came to, that, if you think about it, it's 50 years ago that John Lennon wrote Imagine.
Mm.
And we all want a better world. I think everybody wants peace. I think every single human being is basically loving, peaceful, joyous, and happy. None of us want to live in turmoil. None of us want to live in this angst and heartache that most of us seem to live in. So I was really questioning myself, where is all this killing coming from and what is it about? And that led me to what I am calling the paradigm shift. So the issues and challenges that I see that we are all facing, as I said, both collectively and individually, is fear. There's a lot of fear, a scarcity of resources,
Mhm.
and the loneliness, depression, and isolation that a lot of people feel. So the paradigm shift that I am talking about, and I should probably explain what I mean by a paradigm. And to do that, I'm going to use a little analogy. So it's a lovely morning, and there's two fish swimming in the sea, and they pass each other. And one fish says to the other fish, "Oh, lovely water today." And the second fish says, "What water?" Meaning that we are not really aware of the air that we breathe because it's all around us. So a paradigm is a set of beliefs that is all encompassing, that totally surrounds us, and that we all accept as a fact, as
Mm.
given. We don't question these beliefs. and we don't even know that we live within a paradigm. So the paradigm that we are in now, I am calling a paradigm of separation.
Mhm.
We all feel very, very separated because we have defined ourselves erroneously. We define ourselves as the individual within this skin, within this egoic shell, as a very atomistic, separated self. And we see the world out there as something different, something scary, something foreign, and something really that we need to almost be at war with. So I believe that we are at war with life. We are at war with what is going on around us rather than being in harmony, in peace, and working with life. So if we go back to LifeWorks for a minute, I believe that you can and need to build a functional partnership with your life and see your life as something absolutely beautiful. How many people see life as, or have a very negative, life's a bitch, life's hard, life is a
Mhm.
struggle, life doesn't work, you have to work hard. All these sort of concepts and beliefs that we have about life are erroneous and wrong. But of course, beliefs precede reality. So if I believe something, that is then going to affect my behavior. It's going to affect my attitude. It's going to affect the way that I actually look at life. And it will eventually become a self-fulfilling prophecy whereby my life starts to look like that. So
Mm.
when I talk about a paradigm shift, I'm saying we need to look at the set of beliefs that we live within and really have the courage and the guts to examine those beliefs rather than just taking them. What we need to realize is that from the moment we were born, from our upbringing, from our culture, from our education, from our peers, from social media, from mass media, everything is reinforcing that paradigm all day, every day, because the powers that be and the system has a vested interest in keeping that paradigm going. That's how this whole socio-economic system works. And so we all need to be, it's a very dangerous and courageous journey to start questioning the set of beliefs, because once you do start to question those beliefs, you open a door, you let a little, in your terminology, you let a little bit of light and you let a little bit of love in, and all of a sudden you start questioning whether the whole paradigm, which is what holds it all together, is really true or not. And that can then lead into what a lot of people call the dark night of the soul. But you have to have the courage, you have to have the guts, and you have to have the fortitude and the perseverance to continue through to the light at the end of the tunnel, where you come out the other side. Now, the other side of the paradigm shift is what I'm calling the paradigm of singularity, where we really start to realize that all life is one, all life is sacred, every life form has importance and meaning, and that life can be joyous and uplifting. So, just to summarize that, we exist within a paradigm of separation where we see ourselves as individual units of consciousness separated from everybody and everything else, to a paradigm of singularity where we still maintain our individuality, we still maintain our own creativity, our own uniqueness, and our own sacredness, but we understand that we are all one, that life is one, and that what we do to injure life or kill life in any form will affect us psychologically.
Adrian, that's a fantastic explanation. So we're, beset with erroneous beliefs. We live within this misunderstanding, and we're approaching life from the wrong perspective. And as you said earlier, we need to really examine ourselves, our lives, our thoughts. And I think Socrates said, an unexamined life is not worth living. And that may sound harsh, but it's so true. And it takes
Yes.
that courage to, really, what can I say? So these beliefs are no longer working for me. And I think many people, and we're going to talk about why people stay stuck, because many people fear, well, I have to, if I wake up and look at things from a new perspective, my whole life will shift, and perhaps I need to go back to sleep. I don't want to make the changes, and it takes courage. What are your thoughts about that in terms of
Yeah.
blocks
Well,
that we,
I
Mhm.
figured,
Go
as
ahead.
you just said, your whole life will shift, but then the question becomes, how happy are you with your current life? I mean, if
Mm,
you really want to live life to the full,
mhm.
and I really need to emphasize here that, um, and maybe I should just very, very briefly start touching on some of the erroneous beliefs, but
Yes.
one of them is that we believe that this life is a means to an end. In other words, that life on earth is a tribulation, is a suffering, and that we need to work through that for some to get to heaven, for some reward in an afterlife. Whereas I'm saying you need to look at your life today. Are you really happy in your life today? Are you joyous? Do you experience moments of bliss? Are you, very contented deeply? If you are all those things, then don't worry about a paradigm shift. But if your life is not really working, if your life is not fulfilling, if you're not as happy as you really want to be and as joyous as you want to be, then maybe it is a good opportunity to look at your beliefs, to look at the paradigm within which you live and go, well, maybe I can have a better life. Maybe I can optimize my potential and become a better version of who I am. And I guess my main message to people is that wherever you are at, whatever you are doing, you can experience moments of incredible joy and happiness on a daily basis. Not when you go away on a holiday, not when something unusual happens like the birth of a child or a grandchild or whatever, but I'm
Mhm.
talking about consistently, daily, day in, day out, a contentment, a
Mhm.
joy, and a happiness.
Mm.
Um, these are our
Mhm.
birthright, and it is possible to live that way. We just need
Mhm.
to know how.
Perfect, perfect. And before we go on break, I'd like to just have listeners think a little bit about what Adrian has presented. Those key questions. Are you content? Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? So that you can really start examining your life. And in our next segment, Adrian's going to talk about some strategies. A lot of us feel disconnected, the need to be approved, unworthy, not good enough, based on those erroneous beliefs that Adrian has mentioned. So we're going to dive more into strategies for you to take those steps to become more aware of how to make maybe those small steps and changes in your life. But now we're going to have a brief commercial break. So stay tuned for more on paradigm shifts, the next step to human consciousness, with Adrian Emery, author of Personal Sovereignty, Tao Tuning, The Art of Flow, philosopher, mentor, entrepreneur. Stay tuned. We'll return shortly. Welcome back to Love Light, living in the spirit of love. And if you're just joining us, we are with our outstanding guest, Adrian Emery. He's joining us from Australia, author of Personal Sovereignty, Tao Tuning, The Art of Flow. He's a philosopher, mentor, entrepreneur. On our show today, Paradigm Shift, the next step to human consciousness. And before we went on break, you were talking about erroneous beliefs. Help us sort these beliefs out so that we can begin shedding the beliefs that are not working and maybe hold on to some of the positive things that we believe in.
Okay, I think the first and most important thing, Jean, is to emphasize what a belief is.
Okay, good.
Because we live within this encompassing belief system, which I'm calling the paradigm, we tend to believe that these beliefs are facts. So we don't even acknowledge that it is a belief, because a belief is not necessarily a fact. So, for example, the paradigm before this one, people believed the earth was flat. We now know it is not. That was an erroneous belief. People believed that the earth was the center of the universe. We now know that that is an incorrect belief. People believed that the sun and the stars revolved around the earth. So that is an example of a paradigm. Those three beliefs went together. But if we were speaking to someone 5, 6, 700 years ago, those three beliefs were considered to be facts. As humanity evolves, our beliefs change. Let's look at our belief about homosexuality or same-sex marriages. It's not that long ago that these things were considered as facts to be sins, to be outrageous, to be unhealthy. They were crimes. Now our beliefs and our attitudes have changed. So it's very, very important to understand before we go into the beliefs that beliefs are very malleable. They do evolve, they do change over time, and they need to, because beliefs are not necessarily facts. A
Mm,
fact is like the law of gravity, it's never going to change. So I have identified what I am calling 7 erroneous beliefs, which a lot of our listeners will think, no, he's talking these things are facts. So I'm going to ask you to put that belief aside that these things may actually not be facts, but they actually are very, very strong, all encompassing beliefs that dominate, particularly the Western world.
mm,
Now, the first one is that we are born in original sin,
mm,
meaning that I, as an individual from birth, are fatally flawed. There's something wrong with me. I am born in original sin because of something that somebody else did a long time ago. But it basically then generates the next belief, which is that I am not good enough. And this is a very pernicious belief that we all have. We all have our generic not good enough. But we need to identify exactly what is my specific not good enough. Am I
mm.
too thin? Am I too short? Am I too tall? Am I too stupid? Whatever it is, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into it. I'm just trying to build this structure of that I am born in original sin, therefore I am not good enough. There is something wrong with me. That then leads into the third erroneous belief, which is that life on planet Earth is a penance, is a suffering, is a tribulation, is a means to an end in another life, because I need to atone for the sin, for the original sin. I need to earn that God's grace, or whatever you want to call it. And so this life is robbed of its sanctity, of its meaning, of its positivity, of its joy, because it becomes a means to an end in another life, in another time. The fourth false belief is particularly when we go back to the creation myth, the Western creation myth, is that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested. In other words, we have taken God out of creation. We have separated God from creation. We have separated God from life. We see God as being somewhere else, maybe in heaven, wherever, depending on one's personal belief system. And even if you don't believe in God at all, we still separate life, creation from ourselves. But we have taken, maybe rather than using the word God, which a lot of people don't like, taken divinity out of creation. Whereas I believe that God is life and life is God, but we'll come back to the positive version of the erroneous belief. So by separating, by taking God out of creation, out of life, we then come to the next erroneous belief, which is that life is a struggle. Life is hard. Life's a bitch. Life is something that I need to struggle against, that I'm so tired, I'm exhausted, that it's a constant nose to the wheel, to the grindstone, that life is this difficult journey that we need to go through on a daily basis. The next one, which correlates to not good enough, is that there is not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough resources. There's not enough love. There's simply not enough of anything. And therefore, we need to compete, which is the Darwinist theory of evolution, of survival of the fittest. Because of the scarcity of resources, we are all fighting against each other, struggling for this scarcity, which again, I'm saying is an erroneous belief, because we do live in an abundant universe. And the last one, the seventh one, is the tyranny of space and time. Now, you mentioned Einstein earlier, and Einstein conclusively proved that time and space are malleable. They're relative, the theory of relativity. And so we all have had experiences where time can speed up and slow down. We have all had experiences where even space can be elongated. But we now live within the tyranny of what I'm calling space and time, because one of the predominant not enough is we all feel there is not enough time. We get up in the morning and we seem to be perpetually racing through the day, too much to do. And so there is never enough time to simply enjoy life. So they're the 7 erroneous beliefs that are holding the whole Western paradigm, socioeconomic system, geopolitics, everything. And just to finish on that point, what I would like people to realize is that everybody wants to save the world. Everybody wants to live in peace and harmony. But we're looking at it from the wrong perspective. We're looking at it from either an economic perspective or a geopolitical perspective, or we're not looking at it from our beliefs. And unless we really start to examine the pervading beliefs of humanity, we're not going to be able to change our behaviors, because our behavior towards each other is very, very violent. We don't seem to be able to develop what I call species awareness. Species awareness means that we're aware of ourselves as one humanity, as even one life form. If we think of our own body is composed of trillions and trillions of cells, but they all know to work together to create one body. So I believe that there is a body of humanity. As I said before, we're not going to lose our individuality. I'm still going to be me. I'm still going to be an individual. I'm still going to be Adrian, but my consciousness, my awareness, my understanding needs to be that I am one cell within the human body of humanity, and that we need to start really treating each other differently, with love, with light, with kindness, with generosity, with understanding, rather than this alienated, separated existence of a dog eat dog Darwinist world that we live in today. And so when you look at those 7 erroneous beliefs, they all form a structure. And it's like a Meccano set. It becomes very, very locked in. And that's why we are feeling so oppressed, so exhausted, and that life is this struggle that I am continually fighting. It's almost like I can't get out of this box.
Yes.
And the
Treadmill.
only way out of the box, what I am saying, is to let a little bit of light in, let a little bit of love in, start to question those beliefs and go, this box is just a cardboard box. I can push it open. I can get out of this box quite easily just by looking at my beliefs and changing those beliefs. And
Mm.
when we come back after break, I'm going to give the antidotes of to those 7 beliefs.
Well, we still have time now in this
Okay.
segment, and thank you so much for clarifying these erroneous beliefs that we have automatically accepted and adopted. That's really dysfunctional. And Adrian, can you talk just a little bit about the collective force of love, and then of course move into those the other
Okay.
side
Okay.
of these erroneous beliefs?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, obviously, I mean, let's start at the beginning. If I'm born in original sin, I'm unlovable. You know, you've only got to look and gaze into the face of a newborn child. What do you see? You see absolute pure innocence and pure love. So the opposite of original sin is primal innocence. I am saying we are all innocent. We are all pure, like that newborn child. I mean, one of the most, how can you say, one of the most loving, heart-filling experiences anybody can have in their life is to look into the eyes of a very, very young infant. I mean, it is full
Mhm.
of beauty, full of soul, full of joy, full of light, full of love. You don't see any sin, you don't see any negativity. So the whole problem with original sin is that it knocks the love out straight away.
Mm.
So the opposite of original sin is primal innocence, meaning that I am good enough. Now, the important thing about good enough doesn't mean I'm perfect. So, this is not an egotistical thing. This is saying I am good enough, because the operative word is enough, not good. Not good enough implies not good enough for something
Mm.
or not good enough for someone. You are perfect the way that you are. You are lovable the way that you are. And you are a loving being the way that you are. So the opposite of not good enough is progressive perfection. Not saying that we are perfected and finished. I am saying that that perfection is progressive, that we are always on this journey of experiencing more joy, more light, more love. The opposite of life is a means to an end in another life is that life is its own purpose. We are here to enjoy life. Life is a gift from God. Life is one of the most beautiful things that one can experience, but we need to develop our own personal relationship with our own life. Now, I would say that this is probably my biggest tip to listeners, is that start to develop a personal relationship with your life, because at the end of the day, it's all you've got.
Mm.
Your life is your passport. Think about it. If a person is terminally ill or is in chronic pain, what they wouldn't give to have more life or more health. All the possessions in the world do not equate to having a healthy, happy life. And it begins by forming a positive relationship with your life. So if you have a set of beliefs that says, I am unworthy, I deserve to suffer, I am in original sin, life is a bitch, life is hard, life is a struggle, what message is that going from you to your life? You are creating an alienated, isolated, separate state from your life. Whereas I like to think about it, I say that I like to build a business partnership with my life. Now, a lot of people might think, well, hang on, a business partnership is not very spiritual, but a business partnership just means that it's functional. Gene, you and I need to be in a certain place at a certain time. I'm in Sydney, Australia. You're in America. We need technology. We need to be able to think. We need to be able to use logic in order to arrive at the same place at the same time on our computers, talking to the listeners that are your listeners that are all around the world. The crux and the big question is, what is your relationship with your life?
Mhm.
When you wake up in the morning, are you full of a joyous expectancy of awe and wonder? Do you intend to have a very enjoyable, fun-filled, positive day where you shine your light, you shine your love, you are a beacon of happiness, of joy, of goodwill? We need to go back to just basic manners, pleases, thank yous, good
Yes.
morning, how are you?
Yes.
Um, it's such an important point. As I mentioned a little while ago, it is how we treat each other as individual human beings. Think about all the people that you meet in your day, whether it's your loved ones, your family, your children, your spouse, whatever, or whether it's just a work colleague or walking down the street. Make a conscious intention. You might not need to
Mm.
say anything. It might be just, a nod of the head or a look in the
Mhm.
eye or a wave of the hand, something positive that goes from you to this other person so that you become this beacon. You
Good.
become radiant. You give of yourself, of
Mm.
from your joy. And the most amazing thing is that as
Mm.
you become this conduit, as you do that, as you give out this joy, this happiness, this awe, and this wonder, you are growing within yourself. You are
Good.
becoming more of those things.
Perfect.
Whereas if I'm isolated, if I'm insulated, if I'm looking at everybody with suspicion and separation and
Mhm.
fear or terror, then I am shrinking into my egoic shell and I am becoming less of who I am.
Fantastic. Now, Adrian, hold that thought. And while we go on break, I'd like for the listeners to take time and reflect on that question, that profound question that Adrian presented. What is your relationship with your life? So think about that for a moment. But right now, we're ready for another commercial break. So, hey, don't go away because we have more strategies on how to step into a higher level of consciousness with Adrian Emery, author of Personal Sovereignty, Tao Tuning, The Art of Flow, philosopher, mentor, entrepreneur on our show today for this fantastic conversation, the paradigm shift, the next step to human consciousness. Stay tuned. We'll return shortly. Welcome back. You've been listening to Love Light Living in the Spirit of Love. And today we are with Adrian Emery joining us from Australia, author of Personal Sovereignty, Tao Tuning, The Art of Flow, philosopher, entrepreneur, mentor on our show today, Paradigm Shift, the next step in human consciousness. And Adrian, thank you so much for really sharing those erroneous beliefs and how do we get to the other side? From my experience, I've observed that people are tired. They are fatigued. They are tired of the struggle. They don't want to do life the same way anymore, but they don't know how to get going, but they're ripe and ready. What can you share with our listeners who are ready for change?
I think I'd use the analogy of fossil fuels. So this paradigm has come about, the wealth, the progress, the economic growth and development, primarily because of our ability to translate a fossil fuel into energy, which has fueled our life. Whether it's electricity, whatever it is, ultimately, most of it comes from a fossil fuel. We are now transitioning to a time of renewable energy. So, besides looking at your beliefs, you need to look at your fuel. So, if you drive your car into the gas station, you know exactly what sort of petrol you're going to put in your car. If we all know that our devices, whether it's our phone, smartphone, laptop, computer, whatever, we need to regularly charge them. Now, the basic problem with erroneous beliefs is that they unplug us from the universe, which means we run out of energy. Our batteries are going flat. And we need to find a new fuel source. So if you don't charge your battery, and we've all had that experience of our phones going flat, I mean, we are now so emotionally addicted and connected to our smartphones that it actually becomes quite traumatic when you think that this little device, so we understand whether it's putting petrol in our car, whether it's plugging a device in to charge it, or any of the devices that we know need to be plugged in to work. Human beings are no different. Now, another erroneous belief, and we're not going to go into that side of things right now, is that our fuel is food, the food that we eat. And that is totally incorrect. Our fuel, as you so eloquently announce, Jean, is love, light. Love and light are the fuel for the human system. We need food purely for the physical elements and to keep our body going, but our energy, our vitality, our joy de vivre, our exuberance, our joy, all of those sorts of things, the vitality and energy that we have come from light and love. So on a collective basis, on a larger basis, we are transitioning from a denser fossil fuel, if you like, to more solar energy. Think about it. When you're not feeling well, or if you look at a dog, or you talk about the people sitting in the park, everybody loves to sit in the sun. Now, another erroneous belief, which again I'm not going to go into, is that we've created this alienation with, oh, don't go in the sun's bad for you, the sun's going to hurt you, you're going to get melanoma. But sunshine, light, love, energy, radiant energy are really, really important as a fuel for our being. So the reason, coming back to your question, the reason that people are feeling exhausted and feeling depleted is that this paradigm, this socio-economic system is collapsing, and it needs to collapse for the new epoch, era, whatever you want to call it, to emerge like a butterfly from the shell. So the time is changing, and it is much easier now for people to go through these spiritual transformations because that's where we're at. In an evolutionary sense, that's where humanity is at. And that's why I'm saying that the paradigm shift is the next quantum leap in an evolutionary sense for humanity. Evolution is life. That's the way life works. Life evolves. And so at any point in time, talking historically, humanity is facing challenges because if you think about what evolution is, it is adapting and overcoming the challenges that life presents. That's not just for humanity, it's for every single living being. Species that adapt successfully go on to prosper. Species that don't adapt successfully become extinct. We are going through a process right now of being given this option. So we're at a T intersection, we're at a crossroads. We need to go one way or the other. We need to turn right or left. We can no longer continue on the trajectory that we are on. And that is why most people are feeling, I can't go on, because that is a very, very accurate inner feeling of where humanity en masse and individually is at. And we have this overriding feeling, which is things need to change. I can't do this anymore. I've had enough. I'm exhausted. But there is an answer. And the answer is that you're at the T intersection. You need to make a decision, but you're paralyzed and you don't know whether you're going to go right or whether you're going to go left. You must make a choice, because otherwise you're just stuck at the intersection. And that's where most people are at now today. They're stuck. And so what I'm trying to give is a positive encouragement and indication of which way to go, which is towards love and light. So once we make that decision, once we get on with the journey, the individual will find that it's much, much easier to achieve these things than, say, a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. So it's very, very important for people to understand that the opportunity is there now. And think about it in your own personal life. Sometimes you want something and you really pray for it or work on it or manifest it or affirm it, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, the opportunity is there in front of you. You have to reach out and carpe diem, seize the day. You have to have the courage to go, I'm going to run with this. I'm going to do it. And things flow, going back to Tao tuning and flow. So when the time is right and the flow is there, life is much, much easier. So what I am saying is that right now, we, the planet, humanity, individually, collectively, are passing through, going through this shift, this paradigm shift to a different state of consciousness, which is based in love, which is based in light, which is based in the ability. So going back to, for example, once upon a time, we may have felt inhibited or ashamed to shine our light, to let our love out, to, go down the street and say hello. I think life is now changing where people are emerging from that shell and are more willing and more open to trust each other, to enter into this not only co-creative partnership with your life, but a co-creative partnership with other people, so that as more and more of us affirm and say that we want to live our lives differently, we want a better life, we want a more joyous life, we want a happier life, we want a life filled with more light and love. As more and more people do this, then it becomes a collective snowball, so to speak, where that power becomes greater and greater, and more people are able to then become integrated into that process. And so it becomes an overwhelming tidal wave, so to speak. We reach that threshold point where the tidal wave will ripple across the planet, and we will be in a new world.
mm,
That's the best. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you don't have to struggle. You don't have to push against a locked door. You don't have to think this is going to be really difficult, or that, how am I going to break free of these erroneous beliefs, or this is really hard. It isn't hard. It isn't difficult, but it does take courage. It does take perseverance, and it does take deep reflection for you as an individual to go, what are my beliefs? And what are
mhm,
my beliefs? Not the beliefs that I've inherited, not the things that I've been taught, not what comes across the narrative in the nightly news or in social media or in mass media
mhm,
or in all the other things that are continually influencing us every
mhm,
day to lock us into this paradigm. You need to take a break.
mhm.
You need to disconnect, to
Yes.
reconnect to your reality and find out the truth for you. And that's what
Yes.
Tao Tuning is all about, to learn to go within, to attune to your inner truth, to your inner divinity, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But each of us has a truth within ourselves. And that truth is love.
Mm,
That
mhm,
truth is light. That truth is joy. That truth is peace.
mm,
When you find that truth and when you express that truth, that's the way your life will be. It is that simple. There is
mhm.
no complication. There
Okay.
is no arcane book. There is no mystery. There is no mysticism. There is nothing that you need to go to a
Okay.
cave and meditate or whatever.
Okay.
You just need to change the way you live
Mhm.
your life.
Well, Adrian, thank you so much. You've made it very clear. So, for our listeners out there, if you're at a crossroads, if you're stuck, you feel paralyzed, we have the power to choose. I think there was a philosopher said to choose not to choose is a choice.
That's
So
right. It's
we
still a
have,
choice.
yes, we have the power to choose. And Adrian has shared all of these beliefs, erroneous beliefs, and ways to move forward. And Adrian, uh, the most empowering thing is the collective force of love. So, Adrian, before we close, we have just a minute. How can listeners connect with you? What's your
Okay, the
website?
best way to connect with me is via my website,
Mm-hmm.
adrianemery.com.
Mm-hmm.
If they
Okay.
join, I do a monthly blog. If they join my newsletter, they get a free PDF for the 7 principles of flow. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
also from that website, there are links to Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. Not that I'm not a big social media user,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly I'm doing the blog very regularly,
Okay.
and I try to
Okay.
look at what is happening on the planet in a
Okay.
very light-hearted but broader perspective,
Great.
because I think we need to keep opening
Mm-hmm.
our eyes to a bigger and bigger perspective.
Oh, Adrian,
So
thank you.
adrianemery.com.
Okay, thank you so much, Adrian, for this empowering show, encouraging us to really take a look at our belief system, develop a healthy relationship with ourselves and our lives. So we invite our listeners to listen again at this empowering show, share it with others so that we can create this collective force of love. And Adrian has shared, his website for you to access and download some free gift offerings. So please do so. When we elevate our consciousness, we change the world and create a ripple effect for positive change. And we are so grateful for this encouraging, empowering segment with Adrian. Thank you so much, Adrian, again. And for our listeners who are tuning in to our show, this is Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host. And until we meet again, remember an empowered self is a loving self. And keep your love light shining. Thank you so much for tuning in.